The year is 1884. The ancient disease, Scrofula, is ravaging the world's population, killing 1 in 7 humans all across the planet. Doctors and scientists are clueless how to stop it. Yet, hidden deep in the Appalachian Mountains, one man discovers a miracle cure that possesses the power to change the course of human history. This is the true story of the King's Evil. The present generation of mountain men and women have never heard the word. Yet, if you go deep into the remote and most isolated areas of the vast forest, you will occasionally hear one of the old-timers use the word Scrofula, or maybe they'll call it consumption. Only the oldest elders that remain remember it, because it was once a common ailment in the old days of the mountains. It wasn't long ago that each of these isolated places had their very own granny doctor, who still used her secret formula that was handed down to her through the centuries for the treatment of the disease. And if you listen carefully enough, you might even have heard one of these granny doctors refer to Scrofula by its ancient name that was brought over to America by the Scotch-Irish, French, and the English. For them, it was known as the King's Evil. Now, the dictionary defines Scrofula, or the King's Evil, as a form of tuberculosis, which enlarges the glands of the neck and causes inflammation of the skin, the bones, and the joints. In ancient times, it was called the King's Evil because for hundreds of years, folks in Europe believed that the royal families of England and France possessed the magical ability to cure this disease with the simple royal touch of their hand. It was common for kings and queens to host royal touch sessions regularly, where the sick and the afflicted would be brought before them, and they would place a gold coin on the forehead of the suffering person, and the person would magically be healed. Now, of course, this ceremony had no medical benefits or value. Yet, for hundreds of years, folks believed in this superstition. And the truth is, no matter what name you call it, Scrofula, consumption, tuberculosis, or the King's Evil, it was a deadly serious condition that, up until the last century, 1 in 7 of all humans on planet Earth would die from this plague. Now, during the 1880s, the medical profession was full of good intentions, false cures, and flat-out quacks. There were no national medical standards or government oversight on medicine. Literally anyone could call themselves a doctor. In fact, the Carnegie Foundation published research that indicated 120 of the 150 medical schools in America were graduating doctors at the time who didn't have the slightest idea of how to practice medicine. And on top of this, none of the miracle medicines of antibiotics and vaccines that we all take for granted today had even been discovered yet. So, with doctors who couldn't doctor, and without any medicine to prescribe, it was no wonder that folks in the mountains didn't trust them one bit. In fact, to this very day, there are many folks who still don't trust doctors, just because their dad or their grandpa or their great-grandparents never trusted them either. The combination of this terrible disease, running rampant, and no trust in the medical profession presented the perfect business opportunity to any aspiring salesman or con man. All one needed was a bottle of self-proclaimed miracle cure, a fancy business suit, a little bit of talent playing the guitar, fiddle, the banjo, or singing, and a slick painted-up wagon that doubled as his pharmacy, and suddenly He was a doctor on a traveling medicine show. The scheme was always the same. A smooth-talking salesman would roll into town with his wagon and quickly set up shop holding free musical performances to draw in a crowd. And once he had lured them in, he would begin advertising his own brand of liver or blood tonic that would cure a person from anything that might ail you. Many times, a man would speak up from the crowd and offer his testimonial to the virtues of the said tonic to help drum up enthusiasm. And before you knew it, the good doctor would be selling bottles of his potion for 50 cents each. Now, the medicine was rarely more than alcohol, mixed with a good dose of snake oil. And the stranger in the crowd offering testimony was actually a partner in the rip-off scheme. Yet, people who are sick are desperate. And there was no shortage of traveling medicine shows, roaming all across America, selling hope in a bottle. One such salesman was Will Garen. Will was born in 1870 in Henderson County, North Carolina, and was a genuine mountain man. Tall, straight, and strong, a descendant of stalwart pioneer stock. As a boy, Will had learned all the medical roots, plants and leaves and barks of the forest from his grandmother, who was a granny doctor in the mountains of western North Carolina for nearly 50 years. Once she got too old to travel alone, Will began traveling with her, setting bones at the scene of a logging accident, mixing her cures for folks who had a bad case of the miseries or the fever, and even helping her comb the hills and the hollers in search of special roots and plants to fill her medicine satchel. In this way, Will learned the ancient art of natural remedies at the feet of a true pioneer in medicine. Will's granny died when he was 19 years old, and it was then that he decided to take what he had learned from her and start his own traveling medicine show. Yet, there would be no music, no acting, no con job potion poured in a bottle, just honest, look you in the eye while shaking your hand, old-fashioned integrity. He traveled all of the Great Smoky Mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, trying to sell his granny's salves and ointments for skin conditions and various other rubs for pains and burns. But Will never made outlandish promises of supernatural results. While this novel approach earned the aspiring medicine man respect everywhere he traveled, it rarely resulted in sales. Because back then, everybody had a special recipe that had been passed down in their family for minor ailments, and they'd just soon take their chances on it than to have to part with a hard-earned dollar for one of Will's remedies. What Will really needed was a new medicine, one that the world had never seen before, and he was about to get one. And what happens next would change the history of medicine. Hey guys, JD here. Click the link below to check out my new book. It's full of stories just like the one you're listening to right now. Now, back to the story. So it was. Will Garen had traveled up and down the mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, selling his granny's potions for the better part of a decade. And by 1896, he found himself in the remote mountains of northern Georgia. This area is known today as the Chattahoochee National Forest. For centuries, this wild, virgin forest was part of the Cherokee and the Creek Indian Nation, who had been caretakers of its rich resources. The natives held treaty rights to this land, yet when the white politicians realized that there were vast amounts of gold on the land, they forced the natives off and marched them to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. And after stealing the land, the politicians gave it away to businessmen who built railroads into the wilderness and began plundering all of its timber and gold. Both the ecosystem of the forest and the streams were destroyed by hydraulic mining. Now, Will had spent 6 months of 1896 in the Chattahoochee Forest, selling his medicine at lumber camps. On one particularly bitter cold night, he was near the Brasstown Bald Mountain when a terrible snowstorm made the trails impassable. In the distance, he he saw a small cabin that was barely more than a hut, with smoke coming from its chimney, so he decided to seek shelter for the night. To his surprise, when the door opened, standing before him was an old Indian man named Tachi. He must have been 100 years old. Somehow, he had hid his family during the forced removal, and he had lived on this remote mountain for the past 50 years without any contact from the outside world. Upon learning that Will was a medicine man, Tachi offered him shelter for the night, and using his daughter as an interpreter, the native began questioning his medicines, wanting to know what roots he used to treat specific ailments, what tea did he mix for a fever, and what herb was it that produced a healing smoke when blown into a sick man's ear. He even quizzed him on the best time to dig medicines, according to the moon. And as the night went on, Tachi became satisfied that this white man was indeed a healer, and he finally spoke. "Okay, medicine man, I have one more question for you. What is your cure for Scrofula, the king's evil?" His question was met with brief silence. This was the first time he'd heard any person use this ancient term since his grandmother. Well, there's no such thing as a medicine for Scrofula. And just then, Tachi spoke again. "Maybe not for your people, but the forest have always known the answer. And I see good in you, young Will. I see it in your spirit. You're a good man, and my time in this world is short, and I shall pass on the secret of the forest to you. The cure for Scrofula." And with that, the old man motioned to his daughter to retrieve a small, hidden box. The old man opened it, and it revealed an old bottle that was half full of a liquid, and then he instructed Will to write down a list of ingredients that it contained: sarsaparilla, May apple, yellow dock, wild cherry, gold seal, yellow root, lady slippers, and many others, each only to be harvested during the correct phase of the moon, and then meticulously boiled. By daybreak, the storm had passed, and Will bid farewell to the wise Cherokee, taking with him this mystery bottle and its recipe. By the spring of 1897, Will returned home to Henderson County, North Carolina, to find that his best friend was near his ultimate demise with Scrofula, and, desperate to help him, Will gave him a drink of the Cherokee medicine. And, astonishingly, within 10 days, the sick man had escaped the cold hand of death. Wagging tongues quickly spread the news of Will's miracle cure all over the countryside, and within days, a steady stream of mountaineers, bringing the sick and afflicted in the backs of wagons, began making the pilgrimage to Will's cabin for a taste of this miracle potion. And within a few months, dozens of men and women had been cured from Scrofula. But the bottle was now empty, so Will set out into the mountains, using the knowledge that he had learned from his grandmother of where to locate special herbs of the forest, and using the recipe from the 100-year-old Cherokee, Will began making bottles of the medicine and selling it for $1. He called it Garen's Blood Purifier and Tonic. By the year 1900, Will had sold more than 16,000 bottles of his medicine in Henderson County alone. Testimonials claimed that it cured everything from stomach ailments to liver problems. You name it, it was revolutionary. Every drugstore in the area couldn't keep Garen's tonic on its shelves, and folks even began traveling from Tennessee and Georgia and even Virginia to get their hands on a bottle. For the next 20 years, Will sold his medicine in Henderson County. The mountain trails and primitive roads were littered with signs painted on rock overhangs that said, "Come one, come all, and bring your sick. Garen's Tonic and Blood Purifier is just up the road." And no matter where Will went, people flocked to him. On one trip to Asheville, he sold an astonishing 500 bottles of his medicine in 32 minutes. By 1919, word of this miracle drug had reached the outside world, and soon, medical companies began a bidding war to purchase the secret formula. Anxious to see the medicine reach the masses, Will entered into a contract with a company named the Asheville Medicine Company, who launched a massive nationwide advertising campaign. And in its first year alone, predictions of $96 million in profits were estimated. Now here's where things get a little murky. Just like they always do when massive amounts of money begin changing hands behind closed doors. Just when the miracle cure hit the world market, the formula began to change hands rapidly. Each time, a larger corporation bought the rights, until finally, it was purchased by the largest pharmaceutical medicine company in the world, located in France, and suddenly, the medicine vanished from the market, never to be seen again. And then, strangely, less than 6 months later, two French scientists, Camille Garen and Albert Cometi, announced to the world that they had developed the first vaccine for Scrofula, better known to the modern world as tuberculosis. Just like that, one of the most deadly diseases in the history of mankind finally had a cure. Now this vaccine is still in use to this very day, and it generates over $200 million a year in sales for pharmaceutical companies, over $18 billion in profit since the vaccine was introduced 90 years ago. And that is a lot of money. Now I'm going to pause here for just a moment. Now I'm not saying that this vaccine is actually Garen's tonic and blood purifier, but it's definitely coincidental at the very least. Something to think about. What do you think, my friends? Let me know in the comments below. Till next time, be sure to like and subscribe for more true stories from Appalachia's past.